check, check.
Most people have heard of Carl Jung for his deep work on the shadow, the ego, and the inner self. They also have heard about Joe Dispenza for his powerful teachings on energy, coherence, and transformation. But almost nobody talks about how these two worlds are actually mirrors of the same process.
I mean, Jung gives you the language for the problem. He shows you you're stuck. But let's be real. He doesn't give you a manual for getting out, does he? Dispenza, he gives you the tools for the transformation, but skips the psychology that explains why people sabotage themselves the second they start to heal. And that's where we come in. I mean, because most people get stuck between insight and change.
Exactly. Between awareness and embodiment. Between seeing it and finally choosing something different.
LTAT is here to build the bridge between the mind and the field, between trauma and transformation, between who you were and who you are becoming. Because once you understand the pattern and learn how to delete it, you don't just heal, you actually become whole.
Have you ever noticed how some people don't need to raise their voice to shift the room? They don't plead, they don't argue, they just pull back. And suddenly everything and everyone around them scrambles to adapt. It's not manipulation, it's actually awareness. We've been trained to believe that being loud, reactive, or emotionally available make us strong. But what if real power is actually in the retreat? When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop trying to manage how you're perceived, the entire dynamic flips. People start asking questions, people may get uncomfortable, but most importantly, you get your energy back.
And you know what Jung was describing here? It's exactly what Dispenza is talking about. When your body finally shuts up long enough for your mind to take the wheel, reactivity, that's not strength. That's just your nervous system throwing a temper tantrum from 2007. And most people, well, they're just actually addicted to that. You say you're setting boundaries, but if you're still explaining yourself in a 14-paragraph text, I mean, come on, you're not in coherence, are you? You're in survival. And when you choose to withdraw consciously, you're not being cold. You're finally teaching your body that silence is safe. Tell me I'm wrong, G. We think if we stop reacting, we'll lose something. But isn't that the exact opposite? We lose everything because we react.
You don't have to fight to be seen, and you don't have to defend your self-worth. You just have to stop offering it automatically.
Exactly. Most people aren't rejecting you. They're just getting bored because you are absolutely predictable, right? So stop being easy to read. Don't explain yourself today. Don't reply right away. And don't chase the energy that's pulling away.
You'll feel the urge to react. That's just the program. Dying.
Let it die ugly, man. LTAT believes that when you stop being emotionally available to everyone, you finally become energetically available to yourself.
Well, since childhood, we've all been trained to say yes when we actually meant to say no. Just to be polite, to be available, and to be emotionally on call. Not because it's right, but because someone taught us we'd be more lovable that way. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to avoid rejection. But here's the trap. Every time you say yes while abandoning yourself, you're giving away your energy. You're becoming predictable. And what's predictable becomes usable, and what's usable becomes disposable. Eventually, people don't even see you. They see the function you serve in their story. LTAT believes this is how people disappear from their own lives.
And this is where it gets really brutal. What Jung called the persona, Dispenza would just call your default setting. You say yes to avoid drama, right? That's not maturity. That's a neurological addiction. You check your phone every time it buzzes, even when your gut says don't answer your phone. That's not politeness. That's your nervous system begging to feel needed. Isn't it wild how we confuse being liked with being safe? Reinforcing the loop every day, and then we wonder why we're exhausted and invisible. This is a system, and silence, it's how you break it. So start catching your automatic yeses, because if your answer is based on fear, you're not choosing, you're complying. Pause before you agree. Ask, am I doing this because I want to or because I'm afraid not to?
And if it's fear, ask yourself, what are you really afraid of? That they'll leave you? That they'll call you selfish? That they'll take their love away?
LTAT believes if someone only loves you when you're available to their dysfunction, that's not love. That's a trap.
And you're absolutely allowed to say no, even if your hands shake or maybe your voice cracks.
That's not weakness. That's you crawling back into your body for the first time in years.
You don't just lose time when you react emotionally. You lose a ton of energy. Jung called it psychic energy, the internal fuel that keeps your body, mind, and spirit aligned. But most of us are bleeding it everywhere. Every time you defend yourself against something that didn't deserve your attention, every time you chase validation or try to fix what somebody projected onto you, you're spending the one thing you can't ever get back, your energy. Jung said, that which you resist persists. LTAT believes the more you react, the deeper you get trapped. Not because they're powerful, but because you were never taught to guard your field.
Right. Let me break this down. What Jung calls psychic energy, Dispenza explains, is where your attention and emotion are going. You want to know why you're tired all the time? It's not because you need another green juice. It's because your energy is fragmented across 40 people and 19 scenarios that you can't control. And here's the worst part. You think you're managing your own life, but really, you're managing other people's bullshit with your nervous system. This is where people want to quit, because when they realize how much energy they've actually wasted, they feel shame, they feel guilt. But gee, you've said this before. That shame is just a detour. What's the real move?
Well, start treating your energy like it actually costs something, because it does. Make a list of your top 3 emotional triggers. Pay attention to how quickly your body wants to jump in. Don't suppress it. Just pause.
And that pause, that's not weakness. That's the moment you take your power back. Not in a meme, in your biology.
You don't need to win an argument that will cost you your peace. You don't need to explain yourself to stay connected.
What you need is discipline. LTAT believes if you want to live differently, you have to stop reacting like the old version of you is still in charge.
So you think you're in control, that your reactions are conscious choices, but most of them are just old programming. Jung called it projection. When people offload the parts of themselves that they can't handle onto you. And if you're always available, always smooth things over, always explaining, always fixing, you become the perfect target for their shadow. They're not seeing you. They're seeing the role you're willing to play. And why do we keep saying yes? Because we're afraid? Afraid of being left? Afraid of being unloved? Afraid that if we stop performing, we may disappear? LTAT believes that that kind of fear turns you into a container for other people's damage.
And this one hits hard. Jung calls it projection. Dispenza just sees it as a chemical reaction waiting to happen. You've got wounds, and people who know how to tap them don't need to scream. They just have to whisper the right guilt into your nervous system, and boom, you're back in character. It's not even malicious, it's pattern recognition. They press the guilt button, you serve comfort. They press the silence button, you start performing. And guess what? Every time you react the same way, you reinstall the same damn software. You know what gets me the most? We actually think that we're being good to people, but we're just being predictable. And predictability is how people learn to control your energy. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, here's your LTAT flip for today. The next time somebody tries to drag you into their chaos, don't go. The next time you feel pressure to prove, fix, or explain, don't move. And when the guilt kicks in, ask yourself, whose voice is this anyway, and what do they gain from it?
Because most people don't want your peace, they want your predictability. And Jung says that we project what we won't own. Dispenza says triggers are just electrical habits. LTAT says silence is your scalpel, stillness is your extraction.
Most people don't love you, but they love the role you play. Mm-hmm. And when you stop performing, they panic.
But that panic, man, guess what? It ain't yours. LTAT believes you're not here to absorb what people refuse to deal with. You're here to recognize the projection and return it unopened. So when the mask slips and the truth shows, don't explain it, don't defend it, definitely do not chase it. Just exit with every bit of your energy still intact and in your pocket.
The world is a very loud place. Everyone's yelling, everyone's trying to be heard, but there's a different kind of power, one that most people don't understand. And it doesn't come from defending, it comes from withdrawing. Carl Jung believed true transformation begins with some distance, from roles, from false identities, and from approval. Not because you're running away, but because you're finally coming home. Individuation, that's what he called it. The process of becoming whole. A person who no longer needs the outside world to validate the inside one. And LTAT believes that silence isn't avoidance, it's access.
Let me hit this plain. Dispenza says coherence happens in stillness, not hustle, not defending, not just checking in real quick. When you regulate your emotional state, when you stop outsourcing your worth, the body finally moves from survival into regeneration. And that's when the shift begins. You stop chasing, you stop people pleasing, and you stop apologizing for changing. How much of our identity, G, was just a survival costume? And the minute we go silent, everyone thinks that something's wrong. But maybe what's wrong is how dependent they were on our noise.
Exactly. So here's your LTAT flip for today. Use silence as a rewiring tool. When someone baits you, don't bite the hook. When anxiety spikes, just pause. And when you feel misunderstood, just stay with yourself.
Because silence isn't passive, it's surgical. Jung says the mask falls off in solitude. Dispenza says healing happens when your body stops expecting the danger. LTAT says silence is the upgrade.
It may cost you, though. People who only loved your noise may disappear. Roles you never wanted will fall away.
But what will you gain? Self-respect? Self-anchoring? A nervous system that doesn't flinch every time someone frowns? So today, don't explain. Don't rush to respond. Just sit. Let your peace grow teeth.
And after the withdrawal comes silence. And that silence can feel like abandonment. You ask, did I go too far? Am I too cold? Am I losing someone? And eventually, that silence turns into soil. The confusion softens, anxiety lifts, and what grows in this space? You do. Jung called it a rebirth, the true self emerging after the persona dies. LTAT believes you'll never meet your real self until you stop performing for approval and recognition. And once you meet that new version of you, you'll never settle for less again.
So let's call it what it is. This is your neural rebirth. When you stop feeding the old identity, those circuits, they collapse. That chemical cocktail of guilt and shame and approval chasing, it dries up. And that's when something new starts to broadcast. Coherence, not survival. Not performance, just presence. You feel this one, don't you? The rebirth doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with people saying, you've changed. And us having the guts to say, yeah, I know I have.
So here's your LTAT flip for today. Notice who gets triggered by your distance. Notice who tries to pull you backwards, and notice who may label your growth as a threat.
Because rebirth isn't romantic. It's often lonely as hell. But LTAT believes that loneliness is actually sacred, and that's your soul recalibrating.
Jung said that individuation costs you the collective mask. Dispenza teaches that the new you can't emerge until the old you dissolves and disappears.
And LTAT? Well, we believe the moment you stop being emotionally available for dysfunction, you finally become energetically available for the truth. You'll lose people. You'll lose the roles. You might lose everything that once made you feel safe. But what will you gain? You. So today, don't chase, don't perform, don't explain, and just say, I choose my peace, even if it costs me everything I used to call love.